My name is Farid Singh. I am the Managing Director for Wise Guys CyberNorth. And today I want to welcome you guys to the Tele2 offices, where we have the cybersecurity seminar that has been put together amazingly well with Tele2 and with some help from us as well. So thanks a lot for coming here. I believe cybersecurity is at the top of your mind right now. You're all thinking, this is it, I've come here, this is what I want to get. So today, we have about a really interesting set of speakers, some startups, and basically the idea is for you guys to be asking questions and get all your cybersecurity questions answered by the end of this. And of course, there's food and drink and coffee and tea. And so I hope you guys are relaxed, you guys have something to drink and eat. Let's start this, shall we? How many of you know who Startup Wise Guys are? All right. Okay, the people that I know what Startup Wise Guys are. So I'm going to do a 5 minutes on who we are, why are we here, what are we doing in Tele2, and then I also have another question. How many of you know who TransferWise are or Revolut are? Okay, good. So then I'll try and link both of them together. So we're Startup Wise Guys. What are we? We were founded in 2012 in Estonia, and we were founded by what we call the Estonian startup mafia, the people who made some money from Skype and decided to give back to the community and build the ecosystem and help other entrepreneurs to build companies. We're a startup accelerator. How many of you know what an accelerator is? Okay, great. Accelerators, basically we take small ideas and companies, we give them funding, we give them coaching, and we help them do what they were going to do in 1.5 years and help them do that in 3 months. So basically build their team, get more sales, and build their product. We work on cybersecurity, B2B software as a service, and fintech. We're also an investment fund. And the third thing, which I think is the most important, I don't know why I put it third, but we help the ecosystem build. So we go to countries like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Turkey, Georgia. Now we're going to Italy, all the Balkans, and we basically work with the government to solve the problems of businesses in those countries, build the ecosystem. And our main mission is to help founders become entrepreneurs and help build great international companies. And I think that's also the mission of Estonia, if I'm not mistaken, right? To actually be an international tech magnet. And our impact is to change the market. So some of the impact you'll see here is that we've invested in 185 companies. We have over 400 founders. So this is the largest number of investments by any investor in Europe, right? And the really cool thing is nearly 7 out of 10 of our companies are alive. So if I was to ask you how many startups are normally alive, you'd say normally 10% survive. Our survival rate is 77%, and we've had 2 major exits. And the reason I want to show you this is because there's a method behind the madness. Here's a fun with facts. So I want to ask you this question. How many percentage of small businesses do you think go bankrupt within 6 months of a cybersecurity incident? Any guesses? 30%?
80.
70, 80? You guys are close. It's 60%. So 2 out of 3 businesses over here. So if you look around, 2 of you guys are somehow going to get some kind of cybersecurity incident, and there's a really high chance that you'll go bankrupt if you do actually have one. So it's a very serious problem. And we're here to address it. So what happened is we looked about 2 years ago. There was 1 cybersecurity accelerator in all of Europe. There was none on mainland Europe, so there were 2 in the UK, but nothing in Europe. And we decided, hey, here's a huge problem. You have companies, you have businesses in Europe that are not being looked at. And what we did was we found that there were a lot of investors, but there was just nobody helping solving problems from the ground up. And that's why we decided to launch CyberNorth. So CyberNorth is our cybersecurity and defense AI startup accelerator. It's been running in Estonia, the home of cybersecurity, I would say, for the last few years. And what we've done is we've actually worked with Tele2 to bring them over here. Because guess what? And I make the connection with you because it's important for small and medium businesses and for the startups to actually speak to you guys to understand what problems you guys have and how they can help you solve it. Just to give you, like, we've had 16 startups from 8 countries, so we just don't go to Estonia. We actually get startups from all over the world, actually. We have partners like Startup Estonia. We work very heavily with the Ministry of Defense of Estonia, the Estonian Defense Industry Association, and we have partners like Tele2, Swedbank, ESET, Avast, local VCs, and the cybersecurity organizations here. And our aim, and this is quite important if you think of, 2011 was when TransferWise actually made it big, right? At that point, TransferWise, the fintech industry was about 7 billion strong, like 7 billion of investment was going in. Today, there's about 8.5, 9 billion being invested in cybersecurity. So we are where cybersecurity, where fintech was in 2011, cybersecurity is today. So it's really important to focus on it, to build it so that everybody, so in 9 years' time when I ask you, how many of you know of this cybersecurity company, the same number of people raise their hands as TransferWise, right? And the one thing I want to tell you is that today's objective is, to, like I said, for you guys to get some answers, to get some entertainment as well. I promise you some entertainment. It's not going to be technically boring. It's not technical at all. But I want you to understand one thing, that there is, everybody wants to be secure. Like, your question that you have is, how can I be secure, Farid? Like, how can I secure my business, my phone, my life, my privacy? And the answer is, you can't. There is no 100%, so make your peace with that. And this is the objective of, for you to understand, is all you're doing is you're reducing your risk. And there shouldn't be 100%. There shouldn't be 100% because then there's something wrong. Then you're living in a bubble, which gives you a false sense of security. So you have to have everything in place to figure out what would happen if something went wrong, right? Lastly, I want to say thanks to Tele2 for having us here. I think it was a really bold initiative. You have to do something, if you want to do something new, you have to stop doing things differently. I asked you how many of you know TransferWise from 2011. Imagine if in 2011 a bank had said to TransferWise, hey, come down, sit in our offices, together we'll change fintech. You would not have all the banks currently figuring out what the hell to do right now. And I think what's happening today with Tele2 is that they've taken this initiative saying, hey, for us to be the cybersecurity and digital experts in 5 years' time, we need people to be sitting in the offices, working with our teams. So it's a great initiative. It takes a lot of guts. And I want to thank both Heidi, her team, Chris, who's the CEO of Tele2 as well, Ines, who's the CMO. So it's, I think, really important that we have to do things differently. And I would like to say something that it's time, the objective of this 1 hour is to do things, new things. And I'm going to leave you with a little video.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So we're here with some of our startups. We're here with the Tele2 guys who've decided to do things differently to change the world. And we're here with you guys who've obviously taken the step to figure out how can I get into the cybersecurity world. So I want to leave this, my part from here, saying that if you have a cybersecurity problem or any kind of B2B SaaS, B2B startup or problem to solve, come see me. If you want to speak to any startups, feel free. They're friendly. They don't normally bite. We fed them in the morning, so they're okay. If you want to partner with us with any of the cybersecurity needs, speak to Tele2, speak to us. I can tell you that it's much cheaper to talk about your problems now than solve them later on. That's a fact. If you're really interested, you can invest in your own accelerator. but let's start today's program. So if you have any questions, you can ask me on the startups. You're going to actually speak to the startups are going to come and talk to you in the middle for about 10 minutes. So you get to know what they're doing. But we're going to start with the agenda today. I am running on time. I am sure about that. We're going to have 2 sessions of 20 minutes. One by Mari, who is the IT and cybersecurity expert and specialist at Tele2, followed by another 20-minute session with Kieren. And I'm not telling you what his presentation is about, because it's top secret, but you'll love it. Then we're going to have 10 minutes of the cybersecurity startups talking to you a little bit about what they do. And then the best part is we're going to have a panel. It's a very interesting panel because you guys run the panel. You have to be 100% present, involved, ask your questions. And we're going to have 3 plus me, really interesting speakers who are going to answer your questions. What are the tools I should have? What is the must? What is the one thing that I need to do in cybersecurity? And then you have Q&As, networking, and an office tour of this building, which is amazing because there's actually 3 beds over here, or 4 beds, hidden beds. So if anybody wants a nap, you can get that. So without further ado, should we start? I'm looking at Heidi. Yeah, she's giving me a thumbs up. So first we're going to have Mari, and she's going to talk a little bit about basics of cybersecurity. Mari is the cybersecurity and IT expert and specialist at Tele2. Over to you.
Okay, so hi everyone. It's very, very nice to see all of you here. My name is Mari Kõrtsinilt, and I'm information security and business security specialist in Tele2. That's my actual job title. But you can call me cybersecurity specialist or information security specialist or whatever you want. You can just call me Mari. That's what I go by. Since it's a very thin organization we have and we are really fond of multitasking, you would be really surprised of how many things I do in here. But one of the parts what I deal with on a daily basis is cybersecurity. Okay, let's go on. And so I already told you who am I, and cybersecurity is one part of my job, but I also deal with fraud, business security things, such as some credit controls and inventories, also IT security, and well, as I said, I do a lot of here. And this presentation, I'm going to talk about the really basic things you need to have in your company to be cyber secure. So first up, there's 2 different levels of cybersecurity. One of them is the person, individual, and another one is the company, for me. Well, in this context at least. So as a person, there's some cyber hygiene or internet hygiene things that you can do on a daily basis that doesn't require any IT knowledge, that you should do at work and that you should do that in your private life as well. And that's one part of cybersecurity that you can do as an individual, that you can do, anyone can basically do it and should do it. And another part is what a company and a business can do from their part to protect their company and to keep it as secure as possible. So today I'm going to talk about the business part and a little bit about the individual part as well, but not so much. So what are the incidents that could make your business go bankrupt within 6 months? So here are the most basic ones. But cybersecurity and business attacks and things like that are evolving every single day. Fraudsters and hackers become more knowledge. They come up with so many ideas that it's hard to keep up. But these are the most popular ones, if you might say. First one is Malware Attack. It's one of the oldest ones compared to phishing emails. But how it's done is that a malicious file is you're going to download it, or somehow it's going to get downloaded in your computer or in your system, and it will basically attack your system, and it will encrypt all the files you have in there. And then what they do, the attackers usually ask for Bitcoin to unencrypt the files. But what is interesting about this one, I can give a very good example why it's not that simple anymore. Yes, before, in the past, what they did is just encrypted the files and told, yeah, just pay us the Bitcoin and you get your files back. But every reasonable company would have backup copies and backups that are offline and wouldn't pay the price because they had the data elsewhere. They would get the files in another way. But what they do now, we actually had an attack in Estonia where they don't just encrypt the files, they actually steal them. They actually take the content, what is in the files, and they threaten to publish it if you don't pay them the Bitcoin. So there was this medicine company, for example, that this happened to. And you can imagine what happens when medical data gets leaked. When you have this kind of malware attack, you have two really bad options. One is that you pay Bitcoin for the hackers and hope that they don't publish this personal data, or you don't pay the Bitcoin, they publish the data and you pay a huge fee because of the GDPR regulation. So it's better to prevent these kinds of things happening. And let's go on, yeah. The next one is distributed denial of service attack, which is short for DDoS. This basically means that companies or businesses' website gets so many different requests during a very short period of time that the website will basically be down for some time. And why they do this is just for getting it down, but also you kind of weaken it so you can get through it and also hack the website. Then there's this big word, I don't even know how to spell it, but reconnaissance attack. Reconnaissance attack, thank you. And there's different types of it. The most popular one and most exciting one right now is social engineering. I think that some of you maybe have heard of the Twitter hack that happened some time ago. Basically what happened was that one Twitter employee was tricked into giving out their credentials to the hackers, and the hackers got access to Barack Obama, Bill Gates and Elon Musk's Twitter and kind of tweeted something like, oh yeah, if you transfer me 1 Bitcoin, I'll transfer it to you back. Basically, that kind of a tweet was put out. And if an Elon Musk tweets that, you're like kind of, okay, well, that sounds like a good idea. And a lot of money was lost because of that. And when you get to a person like that, you kind of trick them into doing these things, getting their passwords or getting their credentials or whatever, then that's called social engineering, basically. The next one is phishing. Again, a very old and very basic attack type, which is basically sending out fake emails or fake requests that you want some data for someone, and then you try and trick them into giving out their credentials or some personal data or credit card information or whatever. I can give one example. For example, there have been there's different levels. You can have like phishing emails, and there's like phishing campaigns. I think you've all seen in the internet where there's like these banners like, oh yeah, you won an iPhone 11 today. Just fill out your information here, and we'll send it your way. And then they kind of fish for credit card information there. And then another time that was really popular, I think last year and beginning of this year as well, was via SMS, which was created so that you see that a bank has sent you an SMS basically saying that please update your information in your bank account, and then it leads you to a web page that actually looks like a Swedbank or SEB page, and then you again enter your credentials, and then the hackers get access to your bank account. Another type of phishing where they want your credentials as well. So another types are ping sweeping, packet sniffing, and port scanning, which are not illegal if you do them, if it's coordinated. Basically, the first one means that basically there's a sweep that kind of checks if some addresses or ports are open and active. They check what are alive, basically, and that's where they would target their attacks eventually. Packet sniffing and port scanning is just to sniff and scan the internet and create logs on what is actually going on. Basically, you're kind of putting like a small packet sniff in your website, which kind of logs all the activity that's going on there. Same with port scanning. It just scans which ports are open and what is being done there. So these are the types of attacks in I can't say that word, but these are the ones that kind of want to collect any data from you. And then it's very easy to understand unauthorized access when someone who shouldn't gets access to some systems they shouldn't have. It could be an employee that shouldn't have access to some type of system. It could be so that an employee gets access to another employee's account. That's one, and so on. So that's a very wide area. And the last one I'm going to say is improper usage. So that's when you give access to an employee for a database and they kind of abuse that control. They take more than they should, and they check, they want to see what their husband's phone register information is, for example, and they just do it. And that's another thing in businesses as well. Your employees could do that when they improperly use their control. But we're going to get to how we can solve all of them and how we can protect ourselves with these types of incidents. So here's a chart, which is a very basic IT security chart. We're going to start with identify. I forgot to put the numbers here, but this is the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And these are the most basic parts of cybersecurity, and you need to focus on all of them because all of them are somewhat important. So the first one, identify, is to actually understand what are the problems that the company could be facing. You kind of check everything and see what are the risks, what should I be protected against, and what can I do and what can't I do. So here you can come up with a security strategy, create a security architecture in which you can see what are the problems that can occur. Also, when you have a policy, for example, you can have ISO or ISCA in Estonia, or you can create your own policy which is in accordance with those. And there you can also see what are the potential things you need to focus on. It basically gives like guidelines of rules that you need to follow, and it's very good to have this policy, in my opinion. And some companies won't even want to do business with you if you don't have this policy, for example, ISCA or ISO in Estonian context. And also you do risk management and compliance when you actually check your systems and see what could be the potential things you need to focus on, and also engage your stakeholders because some decisions might affect them, and then you can also prioritize some things as well. So that's one part. That's like a preparation part where you actually identify and kind of create a vision of what your company looks like, what are the potential risks and how you can deal with them. Then the next one is to protect yourself against these risks. There's a lot of protection here, as you can see. So first you have a really good access management and identification system that can help you protect against unauthorized access or improper usage. You actually have this system where you check which access do you give to your employees and to who you actually give it, and who approves this access, so that it's not that employee requests an access to a system and they just get it. Maybe it has to go through one or two people who confirm that they need this access. So you need to come up with what is good for your organization and what could possibly be the best option for you to protect you against having these issues where employees abuse their accesses, basically. Then there's a lot of protection, as I said, network, computer, server, email, application, data protection, where you kind of have these methods you put on, like encrypted files, or you have these logging, for example, and you have a secure level before you actually can get to, like a firewall, if you will, when you get to a web server or an application or whatever. So when you have this protection already, it's of course harder for the hackers to reach the actual application or the server. And Again, it's based on your company needs. You just have to make sure that this level of protection that you have is sufficient. Because you can also imagine that the protection level for an SME company and for like a government institution, it could be different, but it has to be sufficient for that exact company. So that's why our laws are very general as well. It basically says that you need to have sufficient protection, but it doesn't say which kind. That's for every company for them to decide, because it could be different. Then another part is awareness and training. That's the part when you train and talk to your employees about, as I said, the basic internet hygiene. This awareness and training is more about the individual cyber security aspect. Basically tell them what passwords to use, how to detect phishing emails, and so on. It's basically it's basically internet hygiene. Which everyone in your company should know. Not the people who work in retail, not the people who work in IT, everyone should know about these things. Because if any phishing email comes to her accountant and she doesn't know how to detect it and clicks or downloads a malicious file, then you have the malicious attack as I explained before. So it's a very important level actually, that you keep your employees trained and you actually know that they know these things, and if a phishing email should come in, they would know that it's a phishing email and wouldn't click on the link, wouldn't download any files, and won't insert any data there. So awareness and training is a big part. I do that in Tele2. For our all new employees, I have this training course that I tell them everything about these things. And it's very easy to understand for everyone, but it's very important that you do it. And the next part is patch management, which is kind of like a small tool that kind of sweeps the systems and checks them basically, and does some code changes as needed. So it kind of prevents any future vulnerabilities basically. That's the easy explanation for it. That's the protection. If something happens and it goes through this protection, you need to detect that there's a problem. Sometimes you can see it. Sometimes you get an email from the attackers telling you to pay them some Bitcoin. But sometimes you have to detect them yourself. And to do that, you need to have security monitoring, which kind of has these alarms for different types of events. For example, when you have this malicious malware attacks, if you will, then you should have monitoring set up that would detect if there's a lot of data encrypted in a really short time. This type of monitoring needs to be set up. And if it kind of detects this type of behavior, then it can alarm you and you know what's going on. Then you can get ahead of the hackers sometimes. Because it's really important in case of the malware attacks where they actually want to steal your data as well. It takes a little bit more time than just encrypting. And when you have this monitoring, you can already see that something is going on before they finish it, and you can stop it before. Same thing with vulnerability management. You detect the vulnerabilities that you have in your system, some incidents that have happened, and then you fix them. You have a system and a procedure on how to fix the vulnerabilities. You have people responsible for it. You know how to do it, how to turn to, because it needs to be really fast. If you discover a vulnerability through which someone can get to personal data, or there's a potential threat, then you need to have a good procedure on how to fix it quickly. Then audit logging and security testing as well. When you do security testing, vulnerability tests and penetration tests, again, you can detect the parts of the system which need attention. Some vulnerabilities, some holes, basically, where you can where a hacker could potentially get through. So let's see. So yeah, basically that section part is about detecting the potential threats and actually detecting the real threats, actual incidents. The next one is really simple, responding to IT incidents. So when you've had this malware attack, you should know how to react to it already. Or when you have like a case of DDoS, then you know how to fix it quickly. again, you need to have a good procedure for that. And then if the incident is over, it has been solved, or the damages have been checked, then next is the recover part, where you learn from your mistakes, you kind of check what could be done better, and if needed, you notify authorities. In Estonia, it's the DBA and CERT. CERT is one of the first people who you should notify about the cyber incident, because they are very, very helpful. If you have an incident that you haven't dealt with before, or it's very rare, then if you notify CERT, they will do anything they can to help you fix it. So notifying CERT is kind of a must. Notifying DBA only if you have a data leak. But that's one thing you should do when recovering. Another thing is backup, that you back up your files, that you are ready for the new attack. Do you have any questions thus far? Was this all clear, or should I explain something? I can also explain something in Estonian if someone wants to. Explaining this in English is a bit hard for me as well, but I hope it was understandable for everyone. How are we? Yeah.
The awareness and training, do you do it only at the beginning, or is it recurring?
Yeah, it's a recurring one, because these policies, and as I said, the cybersecurity area evolves all the time. So you should kind of do these back recovering or follow-up trainings as well for employees, like once a year or so. You kind of give them news about the situation and remind them of really important things. One thing you can do with the awareness and training as well is that you kind of test your employees. You send out a fake phishing email. You create it yourself and you send it to your employees, and you check how many people would click on it. Then you know how good or bad is the situation. And according to that, you can decide whether or not you should have like a follow-up training or not, and how smart are your employees, basically. So that's one thing to kind of detect if you need to have additional training as well.
A question about penetration testing.
Yes.
Do you make it? How often?
Usually it's done once per year, and usually we have like vendors. We kind of like make procurement, if you say. We want this system to be pen tested, and then we make like offers.
On your own, or some other company make it?
Other company most of the time. So yeah, kind of, yeah, that's how we do it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes?
Do you have any tools that you use that are licensed or open sourced? And if you do, why would you choose one over the other?
For which part do you mean?
For detecting, for example. I mean, do you have any tools that you use within Tele2 that are open source, or do you use only licensed?
Only licensed, in the detecting part, yes. Sorry, yes?
Is there any specific reason that you use only licensed tools and not open source? Because open source, you can actually see the code and you can actually audit it yourself.
Yeah, that's true, but
it's licensed, you can't really see the code.
Yeah, that's true, but with license you have a more secure feeling that you're getting something that actually works and that you can trust. That's one thing, and since we are, I don't know how to call it in English, vital company, where our service is vital. When it goes down, it's more important than it's other service going down, basically. That's the best way to explain it. So we need to be really sure that we have really good systems for the monitoring part.
Well, good morning, everyone. And I have to say it's good to be back, because I've been stuck in the UK, which is slightly more restricted than Estonia. So it's been nice not having a face mask on the underground, cursing people for 5 hours as my train got stuck on Sunday, sorry. So it's been nice. Outside, fresh air, breathing. I like it. So, bit of a weird one. How to hack a ship. Now, the reason I'm picking something a bit abstract is because the problems that we have here are exactly the same as the problems you've got in companies. But it's a lot more fun when you see a ship crash. So, in reality. So, I'll give you a bit of an introduction to myself and why I'm a very weird person, the problem, and what we could do using different ways of compromises and using the human as a pivot point. So, as I said, I am a strange person. In 2002, I joined the Royal Navy in the UK as a nuclear ballistic missile submarine specialist. For 2 years, I was on HMS Vengeance, sleeping between number 3 and number 4 nuclear missile tube. The longest I spent underwater was 138 days, and you used to get 15 seconds of shower water every 2 weeks. And deodorant was a banned substance, so delightful. After doing that for 2 years, I decided to do something slightly less dangerous, so I went into bomb disposal for 5 years. I didn't say I was smart, but nevertheless. So after doing that, in case you're interested, there's still 1 million unexploded mines around Estonia, so if you see a big spiky thing, don't kick it. It'll go off. Actually, we had a simple rule, really. If it was German-made, step back, it'll still work. If it was British-made, it didn't work in the first place. And if it's a Soviet mine, well, there's no bomb in it anyway. There's probably a cheese sandwich. So it was quite good. And then after that, I got into cybersecurity within the military. And if you do a bit of social engineering on me, my ship crashed in Norway. I didn't drive it into the ground, but I did some incident response. And Norway said, would you like to come and work for us? And I said, no, I'm Lord to the Queen. They said, we'll pay you 3 times as much. I went, I'll sign. Why do I join? Go King! And I set up the cyber warfare division for the Norwegian Navy. And then in 2013, they asked, do you want to go hunt pirates in Somalia? And I thought, yeah, that's cool. I get a cool badge. So this is me. I was in charge of 6 warships, and during the day, I was the Chief Information Security Officer, responsible for all of the cybersecurity. And then in the evening, I used to get into this rig and start boarding vessels and hunting pirates. I got a bit bored of that, and my next promotion was going to be a desk, so I then became the head of computer emergency response for the University of Cambridge, and had to deal with Cambridge Analytica and all that stuff. It was a weird job, because the actual network of Cambridge University is bigger than Estonia. We have the North and South Pole stations, we have Singapore, it's all over the place. Now, the reason it's big isn't because Cambridge University is a huge place, it is because it's batshit crazy with bureaucracy and the network is just bolted on historically. There's 33 colleges at Cambridge University, or 31 depending on which document you look at. Work that one out. So after that, I decided to do something a bit different again, and I came to Estonia, and I'm head of Tautech CERT, and we do some interesting stuff. I'm probably one of the only certs in the world that has a warship simulator that we can play around with and do some interesting stuff. And we also do training and exercises for the British military. We've got one coming up in 2 months' time, and we do training for their master's program. So all around, a bit weird. So, the cool gear that I have with my ship simulator is it's real equipment. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to test something. And we'd already done something beforehand, which is we wanted to test that spearphishing users isn't actually a great idea. Now, there's a reason for it. And there's quite an interesting, strange twist. But you know when you spearphish users, you destroy the trust in the IT department. You get them to click the link, and then you make them feel stupid. If you make them feel stupid, when they do click something, they don't report it to you. So we wanted to test this out. So what we did is we got all of the cybersecurity experts at Cambridge University that we could beg, borrow, and steal, and Estonia, and we said, right, my students are going to target you this week. You are the best cybersecurity experts in the world. Don't click the link. I then said to my students, if they click the link, you don't have to do the cryptographic maths exam. We have a 100% success rate. People are quite happy to focus and target everything on that person. The motivation is the factor that we're worried about. If someone's motivated to get into your network, they're getting in. Don't worry about it. So a lot of these tests, they end up becoming tick box. We are secure, 67% of our users. And we've got a really good example of how this badly can play out. At Cambridge University, we did it the other way. If you reported it, you can come into my office and get a sweetie. Southampton University, I will name and shame them, had the same spear phishing attack as we had, but they put on the door all of the names of people that clicked the link. Roll on 6 months later, we got attacked about the same amount of a spear phishing email with CryptoLocker. We had 16 infections, all isolated, all located. Southampton University lost an entire department because no one reported it to CERT, because CERT are evil and they name and shame. So we wanted to take this a little bit further. And I wanted to compare merchant vessels with warships. And I like to say I got it right, but I didn't. But the reason we kind of did warships and merchant ships is for the UK and Europe, we're pretty much dependent on shipping. Shipping is so important. But the crews are really streamlined. Those big oil tankers you see, there's only probably about 12 people on there. It's really, really small. There isn't a cybersecurity expert on board. There's probably a sailor that's been told, you are now learning cybersecurity, have fun with it. And they do their thing. But the uptime that shipping requires is they must turn around really quickly. It is just in time, in, out, in, out, in, out. Because the amount of cost it is to run an oil tanker is huge. And SATCOM is expensive. So doing things like Windows updates, well, you'd probably prefer a cyber attack half the time because the bill you'd get for updating every machine with 4 gig is, yeah, sod it, I'll pay the crypto locker. So we wanted to play it out. And my hypothesis was, what can we learn from military ships that merchant ships can be better? This was absolute bollocks. The military was 10 times worse than merchant shipping because of OSINT. And when I thought about it for more than 2 seconds, it went, oh, of course. A merchant vessel of 12 people, probably the average age of 40 years old, bitter, twisted, don't like life, go on the internet to buy occasional things off Amazon and that's it. Compared to a ship with 130 people, 18 to 20, mainly male, all horny. Yeah, bugger. We found thousands of NATO usernames and passwords from the 1.8 billion breach because people had been using their NATO email addresses to sign up to dating websites. Yeah, why? Motivation. If they've signed up using their military account, their partner can definitely not read that email. But of course, linking the two makes a lot of happiness. Tactical picture. This was interesting. On Snapchat, I can track ships up to every 6 seconds at one point. NATO has every hour. I have a better tactical picture than NATO. Why? Because on Snapchat, if you go to map.snapchat.com, it will have a map and it will put in your location whenever you do these ones. All we did is we put a picture of a very good-looking Estonian girl in my office. I just went to there, added a load of sailors, and just let nature take its course. One of the ones we had, which made me giggle, forgetting cybersecurity, we actually contacted the ship and said, you might really want to deal with this problem. He's taking Snapchats next to a mine. So forgetting cybersecurity, rubbing radios on mines which are a bit sensitive to radio equipment isn't the smartest idea. We found full cryptographic COM plans and everything being released since 2006. All the frequencies are online. This is NATO confidential. They're all public. They're all on Google. If you go to radioscanner.ru and type in COMPLAN, all of the confidential COM plans are there. There's even MP3 recordings of people doing aircraft and military communications, all fingerprinted. And then I was like, how did this happen? And it was the Soviets. When the Soviet Empire collapsed, what they did have before was thousands and thousands of OSINT and electronic warfare specialists scattered all across the Soviet Union with HF directional finding equipment, radio equipment, all of this analytics. But then it collapsed, and they're bored, and they're stuck with all of this electronic warfare equipment. So they've set up a social media site. radioscanner.ru, and they're all doing it for fun. We've now just got 20,000 people all doing it, not reporting to any authority, and you can pretty much get the tactical picture of most war zones using radioscanner. It was particularly poignant when I listened to one of my voice broadcasts I gave in 2011, 6 weeks ago, and they got it spot on, including the bit where I fluffed up my radio transmission and said, ah, fuck. All recorded, forever in time, on this website. So, but the interesting one is ships are generally, for the navigation system, they are air-gapped. So how could you hack it? Easily. Unfortunately, we actually hacked it with a paint program. People update the charts by using a USB stick and going to the website and then updating it. The updated website had no HTTPS, WordPress, out of date. So for this exercise, we just copied it, spoofed it, and then just redirected them. There was no certificate anyway. And all I did was open all of the charts and moved the land 200 yards to the left. Saved it, uploaded it. Every ship crashed. They were ploughing all the way through Amsterdam Harbour rather than actually being in the big blue wobbly bit, which is the bit we like to be on a ship. With GMDSS, though, we also found out that most of the radios, they're radios. They don't have any cybersecurity problems, apart from they do have cybersecurity problems, but because of the bureaucracy, no one's ever managed it. So it turns out you can quite easily connect up to the GMDSS antenna, send a mayday or accept a mayday, and they won't know anything about it. So we played this out. Because no one knew about this, everybody did what I would have done on a ship as well. It wasn't, how did we activate that mayday and now all of a sudden I'm legally going to Australia? It was, which one of you dickheads pressed that button? I wasn't thinking cyber attack. I was thinking, you are an idiot. Why did you accept that mayday in Australia? This will take us 3 months. All of these attacks played out and worked very, very well. And it goes to why we're bringing it up. It shows a very good way of, we talk about the private and public, your digital divide. There isn't any. How many here have your work email on your phone? How many check your Facebook on your work laptop? There is no divide. As another one, how many people here have read the information security policy for your company? Keep your hand up if you wrote it. Unfortunately, this is a very big high percentage. Make sure that people are enabled and make it easier for them to be secure. Don't go down the do not policy, do not policy. Make it a do this policy. It's so much easier. At Cambridge, we banned Dropbox. There are 36,000 Dropbox accounts. It's obviously not working. So changing that mindset of enabling them, bringing them on board, and also praising them when they report something. This is the approach that we need to start adapting. This divide is a real serious way of showing how the secure policies we do doesn't necessarily work. And it leads on to the biggest problem I see with most SMEs. It's the same problem we have in the Royal Navy. Why do you do penetration tests? So that's my question here. Why do you do a penetration test?
To identify risks in the infrastructure in the company.
That is a very good textbook answer, which is not the reason most companies do.
To check if your system holds up to a cyber attack.
Is it?
Some cases, yes.
Is your boss caring about that, or is your boss caring about, am I got my shiny certificate to say I've been certified? Let's be honest, most people just want the shiny box certificate. Now, if you start with that mindset, me and Joseph have a very annoying thing, is what happens is we say, we'd love to do your pen test. We'll do this, this, and this, and this. And you say, yeah, I want to limit the scope to that machine. The one under the desk that's turned off and on fire. That one. because then you get your ISO 27001 certificate to say that your secure data haven is epic, it's secure, and not worth anything at all. Don't limit your scope. Don't check the cybersecurity of a system, check the cybersecurity of the whole organization. Twitter definitely have an ISO 27001 certificate. They got compromised because they didn't include every process. How that happened shouldn't have happened, but it did because somebody somewhere wanted a shiny box certificate. Compliance is not a fix for your cybersecurity problems. It is a gauge if you use it right. So that is why this is an extreme version, but every ship has passed a cybersecurity check. Every ship has passed all of the insurance stuff, but we didn't include human. We didn't include the updates. And the result was a crashed warship and me giggling the fact that I can find thousands and thousands of websites and pictures and all of the NATO secret information using the hacking tool of Google. Now, ironically, the processes of how you deal with these incidents can also be problematic. It took ages to deal with this information breach with the radio scanner because of a policy failure. Every time you find a file that says NATO secret, that computer becomes NATO secret and cannot access the internet. Which meant every time they went and found the evidence, the machine had to be tagged, bagged, and put in a safe. They were just filling up safes with laptops. How do we classify Google as NATO secret? I mean, really? You do that. Have fun with it. Sometimes the policies can be problematic. So be flexible. If something's going wrong, don't follow the letter, change the policy. Change the procedure to make it work. Adapt the more agile mindset. So why cyber is a human problem? It is not a problem for the digital divide, and it is our fault mainly for why you think this. In defense, we go air, land, sea, and space. Thank you, Trump, for space warfare. And now we've invented a new one, cyber. Can someone please explain to me a cyber attack that doesn't affect air, land, sea, or space? Is that a computer in a vacuum? Who cares? The only thing we actually care about in cyber is the impact of an incident. If someone's stolen something and it hasn't no value, or if it doesn't cause an outage or doesn't cause any problems, it's pointless. It's not a magic box. It isn't something we can put in there. It is a whole collective discipline from multiple areas. You actually have a lot of expertise within all of your companies just by talking to each other, opening up, using open source tools to check your networks, to really work it out. Ask your programmers to do it. One of the best checks I used to ever have in the Navy is I would go and ask another warship and I say, if you manage to sneak onto my warship and put a USB stick in, I'll buy you beer for our day. That was better than any £100,000 KPMG test that we ever had because, God damn it, that sailor wanted 2 cans of lager from me as an officer to give to him publicly. Play it. Do this internal competitions. Check yourselves. But do it in a positive way, not a negative. If you find something, great. If you report something, fantastic. Don't beat them with a stick. Because we actually have known this for years. Has anyone here heard of labeling theory? Anyone here got a 12-year-old boy or teenager? They're annoying, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you tell a teenage boy he's an idiot, he will be an idiot. They comply. They don't know they're doing it, but subconsciously, if you say to somebody, you are an idiot, they will become an idiot. Same with criminals. If you treat somebody like a criminal, they become a criminal. Same happens to this. If you keep telling users they're idiots, and they keep making problems, and you're just causing me problems all the time, they will comply. They don't know they're doing it. But from a psychological aspect, that's how the equation will be equalized. It also works the other way. Thanks for that. God, if that got activated, that would be a real problem. Cheers. You're really part of the team. That will be infectious. It will work. As I said, we have to go on. At the end of this exercise, we have compromised all the ships. We have compromised 100% of people from cybersecurity experts that have clicked the link. This is UK, this is Cambridge, this is Tallinn. Everybody will click the link if it's targeted. Motivation is the factor I'm worried about more than anything. If anyone read my article in Postimees, I will much happily have a Chinese state actor try and attack me than a pissed off ex-girlfriend. She's determined. She wants to hurt me. She's got a nice 6 months spare to just focusing on that is much more serious than somebody who might be treating it as a job, who gets bored and will go to the next one. Now, why do I say that? To lead on at the end with what Farid said at the start, you can't be 100% secure. But what your objective is to be more secure than the company to your left. Make it easier. They look at you and go, nah, it's not worth it. That is your objective. Be slightly better than them. Is that a nice way of looking at it? No. Is it realistic? Yes. There's only one person I've ever met in the world who is 100% secure. And he was called Leopard Man. And he is an OAP. He's 100% tattooed as a leopard. And he lives in a cave in Scotland. And he goes once a week to pick up his gyro in a canoe. I don't think that it's definitely secure, but I don't think I'd want to live that life. So as a final bit, I just kind of want to leave on my first ever case. Does anyone here ever watched Blackadder? Yeah? Excellent. On my last day in the Norwegian Navy, I was on my warship and we were doing an exercise with another warship called HMS Storm. It is the newest, sexiest warship ever. It's about the length of this room. It travels at 60 knots. It's got missiles, torpedoes, everything. It's like Jeremy Clarkson designed the warship. I, however, was on the shittest warship in NATO. It was held together by masking tape, rust, hopes and dreams. I actually told one sailor at one point, don't paint that, the rust is the only thing holding this together. And let's keep the rust. It was that bad. At 8 o'clock, we started the exercise, and there was loads of cybersecurity people on the left. And there was loads of warfare people showing how this is the greatest ship and cannot be attacked. At 2 minutes into the exercise, I pick up the radio and say, 2 missiles inbound at 54.46 north, ha 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 ha, and then hang up. And I got a bollocking. How did you cheat? Did you sneak on board? Did I do some ninja shit? Or I phoned the ship up and asked where they were. And the reason I asked about Blackadder is I was General Melchard. And I phoned them up and I said, where the hell is your 8 o'clock signal? You should have sent it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I don't know. Well, where the fuck are you? 54.4. Thank you. 2 missiles inbound, done. So first thing, you can have all the gear in the world. If you're not got that culture, you will fail. Magic boxes don't work. They are tools, they are not magic boxes. But the second point is the next day. Talk to each other, including with your companies and within your departments, because I did exactly the same thing to exactly the same ship the next day, and it also worked because I phoned the engine room this time. And they gave me the latitude and longitude. Because I knew damn well the bridge was so embarrassed, they won't tell anybody that they made that cock up. So I moved to the next compartment. Embrace your failure. If it happens, be open about it. Talk amongst yourselves. This is how we had it. This is how it failed. Don't blame, embrace. You will find that you're not always the first one that said this has ever happened to you, but you can be a good guardian for the next company by just engaging and talking and being open about it. Other than how do you live in a cave? Any questions?
Cool. Thanks a lot, Kieren.
Thank you.